Hi there, and welcome to presentation number 3 of Module 2 of Laser Classrooms, Bringing STEM to Light. In this presentation, we're going to go into the kit that we're going to use with kids, and we're going to learn how to create an engagement activity that mitigates the urge to play with this equipment. This equipment is fun. I do this workshop with teachers when I go to conferences, and I always allow 3 to 5 minutes for folks to just turn the lights off and shine these lights at the different lenses and at the mirrors and combine them. And I'm always met with groans and protests when I turn the light back on. So these are really fun, and that could be a setup for distraction. Kids really are going to want to play with this stuff too. And so how do we create a situation where we are not only mitigating the distraction factor, but are actually leveraging this urge to explore and play with this stuff? What kind of an engagement activity can we create that'll allow for some play, but won't just be a free-for-all? Well, what we'll do for that is actually create some structure around the play. And when you create structure around the play, it doesn't lose the fun. The fun is still part of it, even though you're going to introduce some specific learning goals. And in our case, we really just want them to get familiar with what the equipment is, what the names of the things are, and what the basic functions of them are. But we're not just going to hand that to them. We're going to take them through a process that lets them do some exploring and perhaps some elaborating before we give them, quote, the right answer, before we explain. So another way to structure the play is to have your data collection or the products that they produce be in a playful format, something other than a data sheet or a worksheet. And we'll see what that's going to be here too. And I'm sure that you will come up with fabulous ideas as well, and I'm looking forward to hearing what those are. Structured play is often really great if it is collaborative, so we're going to put kids in groups, and personalized. We're going to let them take the lead and create something that is from their own experience and from their own prior knowledge, and they're going to create something and present it to the class. And before we get to exactly what the activity is, let's talk a little bit about why we want kids to have time to play. Certainly, in a case like this and lots of others, when you introduce something new, kids are going to have the urge to play with it. That's their first instinct, and we'd like to find a way to, leverage that and not just squash it. So structuring play is a really good way to do that. Play is super important for brain development. I encourage you to read the supplemental materials that goes a little bit more into the background of why play matters and why it is something that we, even though it's a lot of work, can work to keep in the curriculum. It uses creativity, it develops imagination. If it's something physical, then it can actually enhance dexterity and cognitive strength. Play also reduces the fear of failure. As kids get older, they get more and more concerned with getting the right answer, and certainly we want them to have a direction to go. We want them to have certain knowledge and information, but we also want them to be able to think, and we want them to be willing to take the risk. One of the ways that students stay engaged in learning new information is by processing it through their own thought process. And if they're super hung up on getting the right answer too early on, that's going to be really, really difficult for them. And they're going to miss things like how it's connected to other things or why it matters. So reducing the fear of failure is one thing that structured play can accomplish. It also is a great opportunity for kids to practice collaboration, negotiation, to advocate for themselves, and to figure out how to resolve conflicts when different people have different ideas. And in the end, all of these things enhance their readiness to learn the material that we really are setting out to have them learn. So in this activity, our goals are going to be to introduce and become familiar with all the pieces of the kit or the materials that you've gathered that they're going to be using in this light unit. We want to give them a chance to play with it. We want them to get interested in it. We want them to be curious and start generating questions about it, start making observations about the equipment, and finally, also, we want to kind of exercise this urge to play with these fun new toys and get that piece, quote, out of the way, so that they've had a chance to kind of get that out of their systems, so to speak. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask them to create a commercial. We'll put kids in groups of 3 to 4 students, give each one, you could give each group the whole kit. That might be a little much. I like to give each group just one piece from the kit, either a light, a lens, a mirror, or a diffraction grating. Those, if you have the kit as opposed to your own materials, if you notice those little white baubles, those little white plastic dealies, those go with the mirrors. So whoever gets the mirror or mirrors gets those little clips with it. It's a mirror stand. There is no right or wrong answer. We're not going to be instructing them to come up with the exact right technical information about these pieces of equipment. If they get pieces right, then that's fantastic. But if they make stuff up, that's great too. We're going to just give them free rein to create this commercial in a way that works for them. So in that way, we're encouraging their creativity and curiosity by not imposing terribly strict deadlines, terribly strict guidelines. That said, we do want to provide some structure and guidelines for this activity. So we'll ask them to draw or take a picture. I don't know if your kids have an iPad in the classroom or perhaps phones or cameras. They can take a picture of the object in action, hopefully. They should give their object a name. What is it? What are they going to call it? Some of them will just call it a light or a mirror, and other ones will come up with very creative names based on what they're going to do with it. This is where they really get to be creative here. They're going to describe the function. What fun, exciting, or useful thing can you do with this thing? Now that's getting into elaborating also, because they may know, well, a light is a light and a light's for seeing, but if they've got a red light or a green light or a blue light or one of these lenses that maybe they've never seen before, they're going to have to start connecting to other things. They're going to have to start really diving into their imagination a little bit and thinking about what it might be for and playing with it to see what it does. And then after they've done those things, they'll want to put it together in a format in which they can present a TV commercial if they want to do an actual presentation in front of the room. They could also just read a piece off of a script as in a radio commercial, or perhaps prepare a print ad with some brief copy drilled down to fit on a page. And then they're going to want to share this with the class as a group as a group. So this engagement commercial is meeting all the goals of being some structured play. It's fun, it's loosely structured, it's student-centered because the students get to generate the content and present the content. It's collaborative because they're working in groups, and it draws on and assesses their prior knowledge because it's asking them to kind of create from nothing what these pieces of equipment are. And it will engage and stimulate relevant questions. You can bet that as they're looking at this stuff and trying to think about what to say about it, they'll be wondering, what really is it for? What are we going to do with it? How are we going to use it? And finally, it's your turn. You are going to then finally, once they've had an opportunity to get through this process, present to them what each piece actually is. And if you're feeling like it, you can go ahead and present your information in the form of a commercial. Yours will be longer because it will involve all the pieces, and you might even combine some pieces. So that's an opportunity for you to then kind of model back to them your involvement in it also. And the details about the equipment are listed in the pre-module section of the course. If you haven't already looked at that, go back and take a look at the pieces. There's a video there in which I describe each of the pieces and tell you what it's for and how to use it and how to turn it on and off and put the batteries in and what we're going to use it for and stuff like that. So all that information is available to you. And finally, I'm curious, if you were to develop an engagement or a structured play activity to introduce the equipment, what ideas do you have? What other ways would you have students engage with this equipment that allows them to indulge that sense of play and yet come away with the learning that you want them to have? I am curious to hear from you. Head on over to the discussion center and tell us what you come up with. Thank you, and I will see you in Module 3.